everyone, Anders with Mind the Shift. Sometimes I talk about the possibility of choosing one's reality. And those of you who listened to the latest episode, you heard Case Parks talk about the same thing. And I think this is really fascinating and interesting, and also true that we can choose which reality we want to live in. And what do I mean by that? Well, I don't normally mean that there are different actual realities in the sense that there are different dimensions that we can't access on a day-to-day basis, although that might also be true. But in this context, I'm simply referring to the fact that we can choose to interpret the same events in different ways. And it's obvious when you think about it, people interpret the same events differently in the same circumstances differently, thus living in different realities. It's not more difficult than that. I mean, an example, take these people who stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Do you think that they live in the same reality as the people who watch CNN or read the Washington Post? I shouldn't think so. Or you can take the pandemic that we are living in right now. It's also obvious, that some people are really, really scared, and they focus completely on the deaths and the dangers that are being conveyed by the media, big headlines, new dangerous varieties of the virus or whatever. So they see it as something similar to World War II or something. And then there are other people who just don't consider the pandemic at all. They think of it as a mild flu or even a mild cold or something. That's not really anything you need to think about at all. And then there are 1,000 other views on the same matter in between there. So there are so many different ways of looking at things and perceiving the same events. But it's not the same reality. So when people talk about fake news and less of fact consciousness or whatever they talk about, it really misses the point, because it has very little to do with facts. The facts themselves can be interpreted, can be viewed upon in so many different ways. It's like facets, Every person has his or her own perspective on life, and the universe sees the world through every one of these different individuals from their perspective. So there are so many perspectives. But then there is a physical reality around us that looks the same way, but we can, as I say, interpret it and see it differently, and feel in differently, and think about it differently. So the reality that we choose to see is the reality that we will have. I mean, are you scared of terrorism? That's what you will see. You will see terrorists everywhere. Are you scared of global warming? That global warming is gonna create wreak havoc? That's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see climate change everywhere. You're gonna see the disasters unfolding everywhere. And other people will see it just like, within the statistical margin of error. And we've seen that before. You can just see it the way you want to see it. Are you scared of, what else? Immigrants, maybe? That's the problems you're going to see. Or if maybe you're scared of right-wing extremists and populist leaders in big countries and the problems that they're creating all the time, that's what you're going to see. So you create your own reality depending on what you focus on. So you can choose to see the world in a more positive way if you wanna. If you don't wanna, then don't. Well, then you're gonna have a negative and a more problematic world. You're gonna live in a more problematic world than those who choose to see the things that are happening in a brighter way. Because I'm truly convinced that the world out there, the same world that we're all living in, is much more neutral than most people realize. There are bad things happening. There have always been bad things happening, but there are also so many good things happening and good developments. And good people, not the least, out there. And you can choose to focus on them. You can listen a little bit less to the news and be more focused on the positive and on the love that exists out there. And that's the reality you're going to live in. And this goes also for the future. What do we want to create? So we have this situation that we are right now. We can choose to see it in this way or that way. But what does the world look like that we want to live in the future, the so-called future? There is only the now moment. But anyway, you know what I mean. The coming now moments that we call the future. Well, guess what? What you're visualizing is what you're going to get. Well, you say then that you can't, as one single person, change the whole environment that you are forced to live your life in the future. Well, that's both true and not true, because you have to start with yourself. What you can do, you can visualize this better world where there is more love and more respect, and nobody's destroying the environment and all those nice things that you probably want or don't want. But if you want that, that's what you're visualizing, and that's what you can do. That's the most important thing that you can do, and it's beautiful. But if everyone does that, or if the majority of people, or not even the majority perhaps, but a very large chunk of the global population has that same beautiful vision, guess what? That's the reality that we're going to have. And so don't get too caught up in the drama, the drama that our leaders, our politicians, and the media are conveying to us from the headlines and from when they're speaking, holding speeches and writing op-ed articles, whatever. They want to convey some things to us that are in their minds. It's their reality. They choose to interpret the world that way. They probably convey a lot of problems because they, well, in the case of the politicians, they probably want to tell you that there's a set of problems that they are the only ones who know how to solve, and that's why you should vote for them. So they will be very, very interested in telling you about all these problems, and that's why you're going to vote for them. So, I mean, you have to realize that that's a mindset, that's an interpretation of the world that they have in their minds. I mean, they're just human beings like you and me. And it can also be tactics, of course. It might be that they're actually hypocrites and they aren't that worried about the world, really, but they're saying these things because they want to have votes. But anyway, they don't have a clue more than you do about what's going to happen in 2 minutes. So you just have to have your own judgment here, make your own decisions, be very, very mindful of what you think of, what you visualize, and who you listen to, and who you trust. I mean, you can trust people. It's a good thing to trust people, but you first and foremost must trust yourself and listen to your heart and listen to your own passion. Follow your own heart. So don't get too caught up in the drama and choose the reality that you want to live in. Let's do that together. Love you. Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend.